heavy with snow and memory. Alcatraz Island stands silent, its cells echoing with the remnants of lives long gone. In this place, grief has become its own prison. Dante, a young man desperate to hold on, receives a letter that lures him back to a special place, a world where denial, obsession, and love intertwine. He searches the empty halls, clinging to the hope that Elena might still be there, refusing to accept that she has left. As snow falls and fires burn, Dante must navigate not only the island, but the shadow of his own obsession. Will he be trapped by the past, or will he learn to accept love without permanence? This is the premise for the video game Fallen Fate, being created and produced by Magic students, being released on April 29th, 2026. Welcome to Behind the Magic, the official podcast of the Miami Animation and Gaming International Complex at Miami-Dade College, where we explore the stories, ideas, and innovations shaping the future of animation, gaming, and immersive media. I'm your host, Brenna Werner, and today we're joined by the student production team behind the capstone video game, Fallen Fate, a psychological RPG set on the haunting halls of Alcatraz Island. From atmospheric exploration and puzzle solving to tense combat against manifestations of denial, clinging, and unattainable desire, Fallen Fate blends narrative, level design, and music to immerse players in a world where the past and the present collide. Today, we'll dive into how this student team brought such a poignant, challenging story to life and the creative process behind making grief, love, and obsession playable. Welcome to the Behind the Magic podcast. It's a pleasure to have you today, Diego and David. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's really awesome to be here.
So excited to be talking about Fallen Fate with you both today. First, I want to ask you, where did the idea of Fallen Fate first come from?
So the idea was already something that I had been planning from the beginning from a long time, actually ever since high school. I've always wanted to make a project that really followed the hero's journey through video games because that's my preferred medium. So I always had the idea to follow that theme of like the hero's journey. And one of the stories that always intrigued me was Dante's Inferno. So I always wanted to do something with that kind of like a framework of, the hero going to another place, another world, and finding those trials and tribulations and then coming out on top, and then we have that whole resolution. That's always something that's really resonated with me, and that's something I always see in a lot of media that I like.
Wow, I really like that homage to classic literature, and then now it's modern, right? Modern media, video game. It's so fantastic, those inspirations. And how about Dante's journey as it nears the 5 stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance? Why structure that gameplay around psychological transformation instead of natural level progression?
Exactly. And for that part, that's the reason that I wanted to adapt the story because, like you said, it's more traditional literature following, Dante's Inferno. And I wanted to change it instead of being more religious subtext. I wanted to be more psychological. So I chose the 5 stages of grief that I thought would also fit well with the hero's journey.
Oh, that's a fantastic choice. It's definitely working well for the structure of the game. And Fallen Fate, it blends an exploration of and puzzle solving and combat, especially against psychological manifestations, right? Like
Right.
your enemies in the game, the echoes, the holders, the doppelgangers. What were the biggest challenges in balancing all of these mechanics in your game while keeping that story and that narrative and emotional tension intact?
Well, it's definitely something that takes a lot of tweaking, and it's not something that you know right away. It's something that you have to just go in there and test it, play with it, and the people, the play testers, even our own developers get a feel for things and change it as we go. So, you have this kind of idea of you want certain enemies to do certain things, and that might not be fun. Like, for example, we have the echo enemies, which are really meant to be just ghostly enemies to fill up the space and tempt our player forward through the story. And through gameplay testing, we've discovered that we want them to do more than just that, more than just set dressing, have them be more interactive. We created an enemy called the Holder, which is actually really, really fun in terms of gameplay because it grabs you and almost chokes you by the neck, and it's very visceral, and the players love combat with that enemy. However, we found that we made it a little too strong in the beginning. So you see examples of changing the functionality of some of the characters, enemies, I mean. and also changing some of the like the health and the behaviors and different aspects of it until we have a good blend of not only fun gameplay, but as well as matching the narrative and it actually making sense within the overarching story.
You guys are doing a great job of finding that correct balance there. And Fallen Fate, Dante, the enemies reflecting grief, obsession, denial, each with those different behaviors you just described. How would you say the design of the combat and puzzles reinforce the themes without breaking that player immersion?
So the themes are really reinforced by not only the level design, but the enemies and the puzzles, just like you mentioned, because it all needs to be cohesive towards that goal of overcoming the grief. So we have a lot of challenges that involve, for example, the player's on his search to find his love interest in the island, but he is in denial about the situation because in the introduction we get to learn that the character already knows that she's gone a long time ago, yet he chooses to continue and search for something he knows is not there. So it's a journey of denial in that way. Of course, there is going to be dialogue throughout the story and inner monologue that is going to, clue us into his feelings of also anger and bargaining with the situation and obviously depression with everything that's going on. So the enemies kind of reinforce that in this kind of oppressive kind of behavior where they all crowd around you and almost suffocate you, like the holder enemy chokes you, for example, those kind of things. That's very visceral. It's very intense, and it's something that we want the players to really feel. Since it's an interactive piece of media, I think that it's something that the players will easily connect with. The puzzles are also something that I really, really enjoyed because they can be tackled any number of ways, giving the player a lot of agency, but also making the player feel like this progression is also meaningless in terms of like, am I even moving towards my goals? And that was kind of like the point. We want to be able to guide the player through this experience alongside the character in the story.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
such an emotional range that you're putting the players through, and it's great that you're giving them the agency to go on that journey in their own way. That's
Yes.
very fascinating. When it comes to the players' choices between clinging to the past or moving forward, how did you design those moments to feel meaningful in the ending there?
So throughout the game, you are going to be collecting these mementos that are special to the players, well, to the character and his love interest relationship. So throughout the story, you're collecting these items, hoping to reestablish that relationship with the character, only to come to find out that at the very end, she wasn't there, and you knew that she wouldn't be there. So at the very end, it's not so much of a reveal as it is an acceptance, the final step in the grief, accepting that this person is gone, that the love is lost. So you cleanse yourself of that obsession by burning all those items at the very end of the story. So we want to really hit an emotional peak, but also give the players a choice. Like, what would you do? For example, I might choose to rid myself of that obsession and burn all those items and move on. But some players might not feel that. Some players might feel that emotional weight and find themselves not able to let go. And that's how we create a loop of the game continuing over to the beginning, and you can replay it again until you break that cycle.
So, as you both know, I'm sure, psychological horror, right? It relies heavily on pacing and tension. How did you both balance those unsettling moments, the silence, the environmental cues in order to maintain the player's immersion?
Yes, so we did that through a few different ways. So one of them is music,
Mm.
environment, story. And what it is that the environment, we really designed it to reflect the sort of internal state of the character while also kind of giving a feeling of what it's like. So that would be like low lighting, sort of moody lighting, like having areas that light up, things that are in light, things that are in darkness. And also throughout the level, you have the character like talking to himself, like thinking about things, kind of ruminating on things. So when you're kind of through an area, you can kind of get a feel of kind of his internal state, while also seeing how he kind of interacts with characters and the environment. And then finally, music. We have a very good composer who's been composing music that really fits the levels. I think, like, one thing I really wanted to do was make a sort of like audio only version of the game and then kind of say, okay, just through listening to the audio, listening to the sound effects, listening to the music, just hearing that, does it already put you in the mood? And then we can put that in the game already mixed and sounding like how we want.
Wow, I really love how you got that external ambiance to reflect the inner struggle of your
Yeah.
character. That's fantastic. As you know, each stage of grief, it influences the game's atmosphere from denial to acceptance, as you described earlier, Diego. How did you also use color, lighting, and more of the environmental design to reflect Dante's emotional state?
So, for example, in the first level, we did start with a very light kind of atmosphere, almost daytime, just to kind of build things out. And again, we wanted to make sure that we're channeling these feelings and emotions to the players as they play through it. So we ended up tweaking a lot of the lighting. And from the very beginning of the game, the lighting is dim, but you don't get to understand just how dark it gets until you progress through it. You enter to the second level and you're actually inside the prison, and it's almost pitch black in there. Just a little bit of illumination from the player character, and also some of the generators that you turn on activate the lights. And you proceed to the third level to be one of the darkest levels of all until you get to the very end. Once you make your choice, depending on what choice you make, will decide how light or dark the level ends up being. So it's a progression of getting darker, darker, darker until you're almost in pitch black darkness. And then hopefully you free yourself of that and you're able to see some light. And that was actually a very important point to make in the story, because you really want to make sure that not only the story but like the environment matches that moment of the story. So that's why the game starts at night and ends at dawn, right? Because
Alrighty, so from a production standpoint, what have you learned about scope and pacing? Were there elements you underestimated?
Yes, definitely. This project has been the biggest learning experience I think I've ever had in terms of scoping and creating a creative project from start to finish. First semester, we were really chaotic. We didn't know what to do, what we could do, what was possible. And so we ended up at the end making a game that we felt like was very needed a lot of improvement. And when we went into second semester, I learned so much about how to talk to the team, how to organize the team, how to kind of make decisions like firmly, so that when we went into second semester, we were able to do more progress on the game like in the first week than we did before. And I think if I didn't go through that first semester, I honestly think I wouldn't have learned what I did now, because that first semester I really did like everything I could to the best of my ability, and I still needed to learn more.
I couldn't agree with him more, because one of the biggest takeaways from this has been the learning experience. Because, of course, we're very lucky to have been chosen to create the Capstone project. We're very thankful for that opportunity, and we have taken it very seriously from the very beginning. There's been no point where any of us have been short on passion or motivation. In fact, I remember the first time that I met with Mauricio was when I told him I want to make a 200-hour experience with all the levels
Yeah.
and this and that. And he was very polite and nice and told me, I think we're going to need to cut down on that scope. But I'm
Yeah.
always somebody who, likes to dream big and likes to, put their best foot forward. And that's what I wanted to make. And like David said, once we actually got behind the driver's seat and saw the different aspects that we have to work on, the different departments that we have to manage, and all of the work that it actually takes, we all took a deep, deep breath and said to ourselves, we need to make the scope a little bit sharper.
Yeah.
And it's thanks to my lead programmer David here, and of course my other lead for UI and sound, Kevin, that we were able to be so successful. And I really do appreciate our professor in the first semester, Professor Allen, who gave us the opportunity to kind of tackle things in our own way, because we really thought, we were confident, we wanted to do things the way that we felt would work. And unfortunately, it doesn't always work out that way. Your vision might not be the reality towards the end. So once he saw that we were struggling, he showed us how to organize ourselves, how to work on systems like GitHub, which is really, really nice, and also improve our production pipeline, our organization, our communication with the rest of our teams. So when we started the next semester, which is this current semester with Professor Tomeo, we actually, like David said, we were able to move the project along a lot faster, because we had a sharper vision, more defined, and the scope was way more manageable. So I'm very proud of myself and the team and the project that we're going to put forward for everybody.
Wow, well, it certainly wasn't luck that got you sitting in this chair today, Diego. You've been a shining star, you as well,
Thank
David, from
you.
the very beginning when you pitched in that room, and your growth over the last academic year is definitely evident. You guys are exhibiting wonderful leadership qualities and doing a fantastic
Thank you
job.
so much, Brenda. That means a lot. Thank
Thank
It's
you.
my
you. It
pleasure.
means so much.
Of course. And what would you say, you two, is the biggest technical challenges you face between the puzzles, the combat mechanics, animation, environment design? What was the hardest part?
Yeah, so I was deeply involved in sort of making the game, making sure everyone's systems work. And I think the hardest part wasn't each individual piece, because I could have one guy do one thing, one guy do the other thing. What was really hard was making everything work together. That was my job. And what it was that like every week I had to look over everyone's code, make sure that they all work together, because it can work on their computer, but it might not work on somebody else's computer or my computer. And so it was really important to set these standards, make sure everyone knew what they were doing, and really make sure that like when people make this game, like you have to make sure that you can't just make sure it works just for you. You have to realize that other people are going to look over your work, other people are going to have to interact with your work, and you need to make sure that it all works together. And what's even funny is that like I had people literally record video tutorials on how to use their stuff, how it works, why they did it the way they did. And it really helped a lot, because I think a lot of us now learn through videos, understanding through explanation, through talking, and just giving someone just your final work. It might not be enough to actually understand it.
Wow. Well, like Aristotle once said, right? The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And I can see how much communication and collaboration really contributed to your team's success. That's wonderful. What would you say, with the collaboration, right, evolving throughout this capstone? Did roles or responsibilities shift mid production?
Definitely. After first semester, we kind of realized, people have different strengths, and what we need to do is really put them in a way which highlights their strengths. Like everyone in the program has their strengths, and I think it's what matters is that people are put in a position where they can really show off their strengths and really say, this is what I contributed to this project, and here's what I'm proud about.
I'm really happy with the changes that we've made because in the beginning we did, like I said, we had the opportunity to do things like we wanted to kind of try things out. And we allowed everybody to sort of pick a role that they felt comfortable with. But once you realize the work you have to do and some of the things that you're working on, you realize, you know what, maybe that this might not be a great fit. So we did always allow them the opportunity to switch roles into something that they felt more comfortable. Because, like David said, if you feel that you're really strong in this area, we want you to shine in that area. Just because you're an amazing artist, we don't want to put you to program. You know what I mean? We want to make sure that everybody like can put their best work forward, and we're very fortunate to have a lot of good artists and a lot of good programmers, but those of us who are good environmental artists aren't very good character animators. So we really need to make sure that we allowed everybody the opportunity to shift roles around, and some people even stepped up to leadership positions, and we're really, really happy about that because it shows a motivation and a passion that we really want to see shine through from all the students.
Wow, that's wonderful. It's great to see everybody shining in their lane and kind of exhibiting their own unique strengths. I feel like, diversity, right, is so important. Variety is the spice of life. So it's so great. So many different students, so many different visions coming together for this one singular project. I think every single part, every facet makes it that much better. So that's absolutely wonderful.
I
You
love
guys
that
led
you
the
say
team that way.
I really love that you say that because the team sometimes has been a little bit shy about telling me, oh, I would like to add this, I would like to add that. And I always tell them the same things, you never know how good an idea is until you put it forward. And a lot of them have been very surprised that they've pitched me some ideas and I go, you know what? I think that's exactly what we need. Let's move on and put that in the game. And that also makes me feel happy because that way, just like myself, they can also point to the screen and say, this aspect, I did that. Every time you see that, that was me. You see, I want them all to have that level of pride in the project because all of us are working on it. So when those credits roll and we finally see our names on it, I know that everyone's going to feel that sense of like relief, obviously that we completed it, and that sense of pride that they put everything that they could into that project.
Wow, that's a mark of a great director, right? Giving everybody that ownership over their contribution and that special credit. That's fantastic.
Yeah, because it's not just my project.
Yeah.
It's also David's project and everybody else who contributed on it, and also the school who gave us the opportunity to make it happen. And I really want to make sure that everybody gets equal representation as much as possible.
I love what you said there, that it's not my project, it's our project. That's
Absolutely.
very
Absolutely.
powerful. I love that. And with regards to completing a project like this capstone, what does it mean to you personally?
What it means to me personally is there's a lot of people out here who have these amazing ideas, and yet they never see it till completion.
Mm.
And what this made me learn is that, like, this game that we're making, you need to make a ton of games to kind of get yourself to that point. So sometimes you really have to go through this process of making a game, seeing it to completion to really get all this information for next time so you can really be prepared for your next project, because it's really just continuous learning. It's always continuous learning. You're going to make this game, then we might mix in this game and the next game and the next game. But I can always say that it started here on my first completed game.
I
Wow.
couldn't agree with him more. I feel like this game means a lot to me. The most important thing that it means to me is the completion aspect of it. I have so many journals of great game ideas, but they're all just ideas. They're all just concepts. They're all just things that until you actually put in the effort and put it in and build it and create it and ship it, you don't realize how many things can possibly go wrong. And it's seeing a project all the way through to the end that helps you not only build a portfolio, but improve your skills, like David is saying. So I'm really happy to have been a part of this project because I learned a lot about leadership, organization in this one, and of course, contribute a little bit of programming. But overall, this means a lot to me because of the opportunity that we gained. I mean, we were chosen. We hopefully will impress a lot of people and we'll bring this product to the masses.
Wow, it means so much to us here at Magic as well, getting to see our creative students shine. It's really wonderful, all those thoughts that you've shared. I can't agree more. With regards to the player walking away, remembering one thing from, let me start that over. If a player walks away remembering one thing from Fallen Fate, what do you hope it is?
I think they get an satisfying emotional journey. I think in this game, it's very story focused, and we really put our best foot forward, I think, in terms of that. And there's a lot of games that are just pure gameplay, some are pure story, but we really want to have a good emotional journey that is not just like, okay, I'm reading a bunch of stuff, but is more like I feel what this character is going through, I relate to them, and if I was put in the situation, how would I act?
Yes, exactly. Like for me, this is more than just a video game. This is art. And like any piece of art in a museum, when you go up and look at it, you should feel something, whether that be wonder, impressed with the craftsmanship. Sometimes you see art that is depictions of horror, of like war, of like grief, of sadness. Obviously there's a lot of media out there today that has a lot of positive messaging, a lot of like happy, bright things. And happiness is good, but we need contrast,
Yes.
because for every day that we're happy, there's going to be a day that sometimes we're not feeling our best, or
Mhm.
sometimes bad things happen. And unfortunately, people go away, people die sometimes, and that's a fact of life. So, with this piece of medium, like I said, like David said, I hope that when the player completes the journey, hopefully they can take it seriously, put themselves into it, and explore a little bit of themselves. Maybe ask themselves, "Wow, this is a really intense story. How could I deal with that? What would happen if that was me? How would I feel?" And that was kind of really important to me because the ending leaves it open. I did want originally to have a very, very sad ending, and it'd be very leaving you with that emotion for a long time because that's what I think good media does. It leaves you thinking, it leaves a feeling in you. But through a lot of feedback from a lot of people, someone happy, someone sad. So I think the best way to move forward is by letting the player pick because everyone's different. Everyone's going to make a different choice. And when you finish that experience, you can either walk away feeling really positive or you can walk away feeling really negative. And that choice is really up to you.
Wow, I love that you allow the players to step into the foot of Dante and really think about how that reflects back on their own life. That's very poignant for sure. Well, guys, this has certainly been a very enlightening and fascinating conversation. I'm very impressed by all of the work you've done on your Fallen Fate project and can't wait to see it premiere on April 29th right here at Magic. Thank you both for being here today.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you
It's been a
for having
pleasure.
us so much.
Thank you so much.
What makes Fallen Fate remarkable isn't just the gameplay, it's the ambition behind it. This team didn't just build puzzles or combat mechanics, they crafted a journey through grief, obsession, and letting go. This is the kind of risk-taking we celebrate at Magic. Projects that merge narrative, technology, and human emotion. Because the future of games isn't just about bigger worlds, it's about deeper ones. This has been Behind the Magic. We'll see you next time.